What's up, guys? On today's podcast, I have one of my favorite people from one of my favorite restaurants, Tony Lemmo. What's up, Tony?
What's up, Adam?
Do you want Tony or Anthony?
Tony.
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 What's up, Anthony?
What's your middle name?
Gerald.
What's up, Gerald?
AJ. My family calls me AJ. What's your family call you?
Tony.
Tony.
T. Tony Jr.
What's your middle?
Joseph.
Tony Joseph.
Very
Anthony
Catholic.
Joseph.
Anthony Joseph.
That's very Catholic.
That's a very, very old school.
I'm trying to think of something more Catholic. Like, it'd have to be like Mary Louise or
Like a Francis or a...
Oh. My wife. I want to bring this up right now. I wanted Francis for multiple reasons. I have a George, so I could have a George and a Frank. No dice. Shut it down.
Francis Graziano.
Yeah.
106 years they've been in business locally.
Right? I would have went with it was George Gerald, or it could have been George Francis, and she wasn't. And we got Pope Francis, but she's got an Uncle Frank, and just couldn't disconnect the two. Funny story about my son, actually. You know George Cataldo? The name.
You know the name and what he's done, yeah?
Yeah, we played golf. I'd have to ask him. I think his middle name's Francis, but it was that day I played golf. I was like, George, what's your full name? He's like, George Cataldo. I was like, George Grubb. I kind of like that. So I went with it. He's the fourth George on my wife's side, and then he's George Gerald. I'm Adam Gerald, and now he's the fourth Jerry in my lineage, and the fourth George on his side, on my wife's side. Does that make sense?
It does.
Oh, so that's what I know. That's about it.
He's connected.
So we've known each other a really long time. Actually, one of my first memories of you, I feel like, was you getting a haircut. You were a Dowling football player. You are older than me. People get like sensitive about me bringing that up, but
I'm 97 and 2001.
2001.
God, you were a puppy.
Right? But I remember seeing you guys like in pads, and you were monsters. You were,
Where was the haircut at? Valley West Mall?
No, I think my Aunt Pam, maybe. Somebody was cutting your hair. Like, your grandma knew somebody that my grandma knew, and you were getting your hair cut. And as a young guy, I remember thinking, that's Anthony Lemmo. That's Tony Lemmo.
Did you go get
Dowling Catholic.
Did you go get that haircut the next day?
I might have. I know, you never know. I might have. All right. So obviously we know each other, but give kind of give for our listeners a background on who is Tony Lemmo.
Like 20 minutes or like 2 minutes?
2 to 3.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll meet you
Very short attention spans for some reason. I don't know. I'm teasing, but
fired up.
Yeah.
I'm fired up. The adrenaline's just, Okay. So obviously grew up in the South Side, went to Dowling High School, was a football stud there. I can say that now that I'm out of shape.
You were a stud.
I was. All-state elite 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Got a scholarship to University of Northern Iowa. Did a year up there. Day one, check-in. I was like, no bueno. Stuck it out.
Not even a night at the hill.
No.
Monday morning.
I was like doubting it, during the college visit stuff. And I was
Really?
like, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to, bash up my knees and my back? And I wasn't ready for college and academia. So long story short, I was like, I'll do this for a year. I'll honor it, honor the contract, if you will.
Yeah.
And did a year up there, or did a year of football, finished 5 years strong, and almost moved to Chicago, and that fell through last minute. So I ended up staying in Des Moines, waited tables for a couple restaurants in town, and then I started Cafe di Scala in the old Metro Market, which is now where Gateway is.
What year was that?
September of 2003.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
You weren't even of legal age.
No.
Not that it was like a bar. It was, it was an indoor farmer's market where Gateway Market is now. It was I think it was like 308 square feet.
Yeah.
And it was open a couple of days a week on the weekends. And I sold homemade pastas and, made hot sandwiches to go there. There's a little cafeteria area, a dining room with some other restaurants that, you could walk through and buy, Delaware County Meats had some pork chops, some bacon. There was, people selling homemade candles and honeys, and it was like a little bit of Iowa all in one building. Great idea. Didn't last very long. Fortunately, I was able to get the name out there and kind of build my brand, and then bought the Chat Noir down the street. Opened Cafe di Scala in closed in June of 05 and opened in July 29th of 05.
Got it.
Had an awesome run. Before the first few years of there, I started Frank's Pizza, which evolved into Gusto Pizza, and then since Juniper Moon, and here we are.
El Guapo.
El Guapo, yeah.
Over by my parents' house.
Yeah, really fun place. Tacos, tequila.
I like
lots
tequila.
of TVs. Not in January though.
I don't discriminate on when I drink tequila. I'm actually not drinking right now. We talked about that, but
it's
maybe,
really
maybe next month.
Tequila is super healthy. I think it's like the new white wine. It's the new thing. So
do you have because I've become sort of a tequila on the rocks to sip and really enjoy a good tequila. I've really come around to that. Do you have okay, so let's just unpack this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Don Julio Añejo on the rocks guy, a little bit of lemon, and I can just sip through that all night. I'm not trying to have like 10 of them, but I can have 2 of those and really like it a lot. Is it similar to wine or beer that there's sort of like different varietal? Like how do they break out? Do you understand how they break out the tequila?
I mean, the nuts and the bolts of it, my partner Chase over there, I don't know if you know, Chase is our 4th partner over there.
Okay.
It's the Gusto guys. Actually, there's 5 of us. Jeez Louise. So sorry, Jared. Jared's in San Diego right now. So no.
All right.
No, but long story short, Chase has put together an amazing tequila list, and I think we're up to like 45, 48.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I think we're over 50 now because I haven't checked in for a couple weeks, but I am. So regarding the production of it, and, grapes are, plucked and they go and crush them and ferment, and depending on what kind of wine you're making or what the laws of the government says. For instance, Italy has an appellation system that's DOC, DOCGs, and IGTs. Those are basically just labels of how important those wines are and how strict the recipes are, essentially how you can make those. Mexico is very similar to that, where, the mezcal, or not the mezcal, but the agave plant is, you okay?
Excuse me.
You scared me. I thought you were going down on me. Okay. So anyway, talk about losing your train of thought.
Yeah, right. Mezcal. And they have similar...
not mezcal. So I was saying agave, the plant that tequila is made with.
Yeah.
That is grown in a specific area, which I believe is Jalisco. And again, I'm a wine snob, so I'm not going to pretend I know lots about tequila. I really don't. But I'm with you that a little, añejo on the rocks, even, if it's a non-aged tequila is great. Just on the rocks, like nothing else, is phenomenal. Right. I took my family there yesterday after this wonderful little holiday celebration. Had, a couple different margaritas, and freshly squeezed lime juice and lemon juice is amazing for you.
Right.
I mean, that alone is, detoxing. And then I think, how clean tequila drinks and how it's made is really cool. Obviously start getting into like mezcal, where they smoke the leaves and then distill it. That's much more intense application to that. But going back to it, I think the soul and the idea, the notion of how you make it and how important it is to that region is very similar to wine as it is to like France and Italy and Spain, where it's just a really important part of their identity.
Yeah.
And I think without doubt, I mean, anyone will know this, wine and grapes are a lot more delicate. And, there's the terroir, which is the ground, and the geography where you're at is really important. That makes the wine.
Yeah, totally.
But also Mother Nature and weather. Rain is no good. Rain towards the end of harvest can just destroy an entire, vintage of something really cool. So, and I've seen it, like it's amazing. So, and then even if you have a great season and the ground's great and everything's just humming along great, then the winemaker's got to take that and put that in the cellar and make something great out of it. So there's, that's kind of like the least, it's important, but that's the easy part. Hard part is what Mother Nature does.
Is tequila similar in that
It's not.
That's the region? Okay, so
it's not as delicate as that. So
that makes sense. So you can have more consistency with the tequila,
Absolutely.
regardless of where it's
Absolutely.
grown.
Absolutely.
But with the grapes, it has everything to do with the region and the ground and the
Correct.
water and everything.
Yeah, it's important. The terroir is just as important, obviously, but and that's why you don't see. I don't know of any vintage tequila. And I think that's partly why, because a 17 and 18, there's no Barolos out there because they take a few years to age, but just younger wine, you're going to taste the subtle differences between those because of what nature did. Yeah, not so much what the winemaker did, but what happened out there in the vineyard. Right. So, and as vines get older, they start to lose their soul. So you'll see winemakers pull up those older vines, plant new ones, and the whole process starts all over. So it's phenomenal. Yeah. I don't know the specific details about agave, but they're a little more fortified, if you will, and, a little more insulated in the soil, or sand or whatever. No, that makes sense. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about our conversations, and this makes me think of that, is you have just such a true passion, not only as an entrepreneur, but as a restaurateur and as a chef. And our dialogue always really goes to sort of the romance of and the art of food and the experience, and also combining that with your entrepreneurial spirit. Where does that come from for you? Where do you feel like that starts? Is there a moment or a time that you really fell in love with cooking and the entrepreneurial side? They're tied together. They're directly tied together for sure. But I didn't really pick up the cooking thing till college. My mother always cooked a homemade meal, 6.5 days a week, if not, always had a homemade cooked meal at home. We didn't go out much. And I didn't really start to get curious about that part of it till I was in college, believe it or not. Like, what am I doing here? Right. And again, I ended up with a Bachelor of Liberal Arts, which is basically 3 minors, lumped into one in a 5-year, fun little vacation. Did you have college jobs? You worked at a pizza joint there? I did. I worked up at Tony's La Pizzeria, so that was really fun. I actually did everything from like prep during the day with the old man, Tony Tomjanovich. God bless his soul. He'd have a big fat red man in his mouth, and we'd watch CNN, and he'd spit on the floor and be like, "Those damn liberals." So he was just a great man. I should be careful with that, but he was old school, I'll just put it that way. Yeah. Very old school, and I looked up to him a lot. But that aside, I actually was a bartender there, on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. And then occasionally I'd, make pizzas during the day for a couple hours and, a little extra paycheck, and delivered too. Like, it was kind of like all the facets. That wasn't what, I know how to do this now, I'm going to open my own place. But it was certainly, I think probably when I realized the language of food is when, I was like, okay, it's kind of cool to see these different behind the scenes things, But, as my family, my dad's folks had Lemmo's Grill. And when he grew up, my mother's father was a Lacona, Frank Lacona. He worked for both Noah and Chuck, Mama Lacona's and Noah's Ark. So he was a chef there and did everything, jack of all trades. So, it's like dangling on both sides. Right. That was always our go-to growing up, was Mama Lacona's Pizza. Which one? I'm curious. Over Beaverdale. Oh, yeah. So my grandpa Jerry and Nancy lived on Lower Beaver. Mm-hmm. And that was if we went over to, Grandma and Grandpa's, we'd go to the pool, and that afternoon we'd order Mama Lacona's. Yeah. And that was just what we did. One of my favorite pizzas, and, right, for sure. Question. So very similar to Noah's, so you can still get it, but, a little different, obviously. Yeah. I hadn't been to Noah's for a long time, up until probably a couple of years ago, and you just sort of forget how good, important, great is. Yeah. It's like it's walking into like the Smithsonian. Yeah. And there's, that nautical theme that's really cool and wacky. And then there's just this 75 plus year legacy of family, doing what they do best, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a long time. How do you balance that? That's interesting with restaurants, and you have a variety of businesses within the restaurants that you guys do. And Cafe de Scala was really this place of an experience. It's in the home. It's one of my wife and I's favorite restaurants. Always has been, now being Aposto. But it's like, that was something it was an art form, right? Thank you, man.
And then you really take on the other side where you're trying to create more concept and deliver something totally different, which is Gusto, and really super good, fresh pizza right out of the oven, but more ready to order pizza. How do you balance between that? Like we talk about Noah's and then say, take something that's a newer concept where the food is really good. It's different. But when you walk into a place like Noah's, you know, you're steeped in, you just feel that you marinate in the tradition. You feel that, right? You go to Latin King, you feel that. I mean, I think that's maybe for me, the difference between like a Centro and a Latin King. Not that there's not tradition at Centro as that's continually growing over time, right?
It's a decade and a half versus,
60, 70, 7 decades. Yeah. And you feel that. How do you balance between that as a business person and as a chef, right? The ones that pour out their passion and do that. How do you balance between those two? Does that make sense?
Two different vehicles, you're saying, like the Gusto vehicle and the Aposto vehicle?
Yeah. As you're picking concepts and you want something that's going to resonate with folks, but at the same time, you really, sometimes you can, I don't know how to really say it, but I'll think of like real estate. You might do something that I really, really, really like, but then to the masses, it doesn't land. Right. Or sometimes we'll do stuff that hits for the masses that maybe wasn't necessarily my style. As a business person and a chef, like I almost feel like the business owner's like, give them the filet and give them the cab. Right. What's the movie? What's the food truck movie?
Oh, Chef.
Yeah. And he goes in there and he gets fired. And he gets, right. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of that. Yeah. It is. How do you balance for between the entrepreneur and the artist?
No, I'm totally focused here, by the way, but I'm going to bring up another movie before I answer your question.
I love it. We can bounce around.
The movie The Big Night? Have you heard of that? Just Google The Big Night, and also there is a scene where husband and couple are in a small, very empty Italian restaurant, and the wife is like, "I think I'll have a side of risotto with my bucatini or my meatballs," and the chef, there's two brothers. It's great. It's a fantastic movie, by the way. Please watch it. It's the most underrated. You don't have to be in the restaurant business to appreciate it, but it's great. So one brother's out in the front, kind of running the front of the house, which is the inside of the restaurant, minus the kitchen, and the back of the house is the kitchen for, if you need the lingo. So the back of the house is the other brother who's a little more temperamental, and he hears the woman order a side of risotto with her spaghetti. And he's like, no, these Philistines, these filthy people, no, I will not do it, So it's like, trying to balance that. I thought of that when you said that. How do you balance, the two different worlds? So going back to your question, how do I balance it? Well, first off, I have amazing partners, Joe McConville and Josh, and I started Gusto Pizza. Originally it was Frank's Pizzas, and started in the Drake neighborhood. And I'd started that with another partner and bought him out, and then went, full steam about a year after that with a good friend of mine, Aaron Flynn with Flynn Wright, and we worked on a new logo and then kind of, new sensory package of the place. And with Joe and Josh, I brought them on board as partners, and, we threw that thing out of the gates super strong, almost 9 years of the date, literally another week or so. I should know the exact date, but I don't. And Ingersoll opened the doors as Gusto. After a couple years, the Frank's was closed, Gusto happened. And going back to that, like, how do you balance that full dining, a wine steward, a host, a bartender, 5-6 people in the kitchen, and just all these intricate parts that make this great experience, it's like a maestro,
that's where my head was. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that's what I am. Sometimes I think I'm a shrink, helping people's problems out. Right. A little bit of Bob Vila, a little bit of Martha Stewart, there's just a lot of roles you have to play, but that person that is the maestro, that is helping, make the production alive and beautiful. You have to dive into a lot of different worlds. So part of Gusto was, one, I never thought I'd have a fine dining restaurant this long. I never wanted Scala to be open more than 5-6 years. I knew I'd want to do a pizzeria and do a few of them and, kind of grow out of that fine dining thing, and just, much easier concept to run. And maybe that's a little naive to say that, to think that back then and know it now, how difficult it is. But, to have a Aposto, Cafe di Scala 2.0 now, it's amazing. That was never part of the game plan. I mean, I remember I think it was, obviously City View, and was it Point Blank was the other weekly publication back then. Do you remember?
Mm-mm.
So there was a couple weekly publications, and I, Mom cut everything out and framed it. And that's like, I'll never, it's hanging up in my office. My quote was like, I'll do this for 3 or 4 years, 5 years, maybe. I'm not a Noah Lacone or Bob Tercy. I don't want to, I don't want to do this forever. There's something else calling me. So pizza was kind of a way to kind of keep food going. And then, whatever the next calling was, I wasn't quite sure. So,
but it keeps pulling you back, right?
Just when I thought I was out, it just pulls me back in.
What is that? I mean, what is that though?
That's The Godfather, by the way.
Right. But what is it?
It's a sense of rush. It's a sense of, like I said, I mean, like, I'm very blessed with the people that I'm able to surround myself with. I mean, I have one of the most talented chefs in town. I mean, Des Moines is blessed with the culinary scene. They really are. We really are, rather. And Sean, who is, he's been with me for a year and a half, with this kind of like new evolution of our identity, because Aposto was originally just ticketed dinners only on Saturday nights and private events. And it wasn't working great, and I was like patient with it. But then you realize, either sell it, get out, or just do it better and do it the right way. And so I chose, that one, thank God, and we're kicking butt, and it's great. And going back to your question, like Maestro, all the moving parts, there's a joy in it of making everything connect. And, you and your wife coming in for a date night and you guys leaving with a smile on your face, like there's something really rewarding about that.
Right.
Same thing when you see someone close on a house, one of your houses, they get their keys, right? I mean, that's a big deal. So, not as big a deal as having a great experience, but there's a lot of behind the scenes with you. You can fix things and then you hand them the keys and their dream home's there. Our place, there's all these things that could unravel, and it's frustrating at times. But I've set this up 2.0 where I don't have to be there. Like, I want to be there, and I'm there as much as I can, and I'm there a ton in the morning. But at night, I want to be with my 2 girls, my wife, and I'm 40. I'm in my 40s, and I have 2 young girls. So, the restaurant part, all those moving parts, and so submerged in them, and making sure they were, implemented. Everything was done perfectly. I mean, I feel like I devoted a lot of, my life to that early on. So now it's kind of like, it's cool to see that work without me, because I feel like I built everything it took to build, to invest in all that is happening now, and I can be a dad and a husband, and it's cool.
How have you found, how do you define enough? So how do you find
staff or?
No, like personally, like that's tough as an entrepreneur.
Like finding the
what is enough, right? Before we came on, we were talking a little bit about kind of having to know yourself, and you kind of shared a little bit of your philosophy. A lot of it is about finding what is enough, right?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it's easy to chase all the different ideas. And I feel like if, I know for us, if you feel like, hey, we have something that's really good in this area, and then it's like, well, we could do that again. Or we do this really well, so obviously we could do that really well, right? Mm-hmm. And the entrepreneur in you wants to just continue to try all these different things, but at some point you have to know for yourself what's enough. I have to have some ability to be present at work, be present for my kids, be present in my marriage, and make all of this, work, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And there is that constant pull to want to go back in, but you have to find out what is enough.
There's got to be a governor in there,
Yeah. What's that philosophy for you? How do you sort of in your mind navigate that?
Well, a couple of years ago I said I would never open another restaurant, and that clearly changed when we reopened Gusto's, El Guapo's, and Waukee. But, I think that was a little bit where we saw our concept start to be challenged with so many new pizzerias moving in from out of state and chains, and we're invested in that area. It's like another location was a different story. We're like, this is never going to work. It's not worth our energy, and it was a collective decision. This one, we're like, the neighborhood's there. What's missing? What do we do wrong? What can we do right? And so that's kind of how El Guapo's was born. So an asterisk by that comment, like, I'm not going to do anything more. I mean, that's kind of like my fist is down. I'm not doing anything more. There's just no reason to. And it's, in your 20s and 30s, I think I thought I was 18 still, and I'm just not. I realize how precious life is. Obviously, I lost my dear mom a few years ago, and I see that, and it's just not worth it going 90 miles an hour and then it's stopping,
For what?
you didn't get a stop. It stopped you,
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it. And again, just, I think have closed Scala, and I close, as and a lot of listeners don't know that was my choice to close it. Cause as I was there all the time. I literally lived above it. If you came in there for dinner and I wasn't there, you were upset, cause I became the Bob Tercy, I became the Noah Lacona. And so part of it was like, we closed it on top, had a phenomenal year. And my accountant was like, are you serious? You really want to close this right now? You're crushing your record, I'm like,
Right.
yes, I do. I really do, so
Yeah.
life throws you curveballs, and, a couple of the other businesses didn't go as planned. And, I had to kind of retool Aposto, Scala, and I've done that. And, since then, I've gotten married, I've had 2 kids, and that's my governor. That's my compass. That's my, that's my threshold, but I don't know. Is it?
No, it does. I think that's the hardest part as an entrepreneur, is to really sometimes know where enough is, because it is endless. I mean, the opportunities are really endless. And when you do something good, people are coming to you constantly with ideas like, hey, you should do a Mexican restaurant, like whatever,
Right.
It's like they're coming to you constantly with ideas.
The Tony me 10 years ago would have kept going though,
Right.
And it probably wasn't super healthy, I'm sure, the stress, or just, the extra wear and tear on the knees, or the, 3-hour or 4-hour nights of sleep and getting back up. And, I mean, I've burnt quite a bit, on both ends. I've burned a lot of midnight oil. I still love burning the midnight oil, just a different way,
Yeah.
And, part of that experience is hopefully it's made me a little bit brighter, sharper, as Andrew said, a couple places I have closed. He goes, you know what? You got your MBA out of this deal. You lost a ton of money on a couple of those places, and, you're down on yourself because no one wants to ever close something, but you're stronger because of those things. Those things you couldn't control are, they're making you stronger.
Yeah.
And tying back to what we were talking about before we started recording, Robert Rodriguez is the director, writer, and going back into the Desperado movie. Before that, he made El Mariachi. Before no one knew who he was, with no money, and he made that movie for $7,000 pre-production. We figured out, and his book, I read it 20 plus years ago, called Rebel Without a Camera, and it was him talking about making that movie. And sometimes less is more, and it just opens you up, and you're able to feel things and see things you wouldn't see with $1 million sitting in front of you. So and maybe that is an ingredient. I'm just realizing this part of my process is everything I've ever done has been all hands on deck. I mean, I'm drywalling, I'm trimming, I've done everything. I mean, that cafe, I've honed it with my own hands. It wasn't like, we're going to have a guy come over here and build this, and this guy's going to build this. I'm pretty proud of the things I molded with my hands. And, Joe, Josh, and I, and Jared, and Chase have all done that with El Guapos. We did the entire demo and the build out ourselves. Right. So I think there's a reward in there. There's, okay, well, we don't have $20,000 to do that fancy bar. So, we're pretty proud of it. It looks phenomenal. Things that we would have never thought of happened because of that, predicament. Yeah. It wasn't even a predicament. It was just, again, those are the oranges that we were dealt with. And we, that's pretty cheesy. So we'll edit that one out.
No, it makes sense. And I think, honestly, as I'm listening, this is ultimately what I love about you, and I love having conversations with you about, is a lot of these are really vehicles to the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's a way to express ourselves. It's a way to learn about ourselves. It's a way to get better. And I think it's sort of having that perspective and that awareness that that's the game we're playing. Yeah. Rather than sort of continue to build and grow what you want to do. But if it really becomes just that, then in essence, it feels like the business runs you, right? Like the home building business runs you, the restaurant then runs you. Mm-hmm. And I heard, when you said burn the midnight oil, what's nice is it's not sustainable to do that forever. No. But it is the best part. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like in the weird way, like that's the drug. Yeah. Yeah. That's the drug.
It truly is.
I still want the drug. Yeah. I still want to get high on the grind, but I'm in control of the grind. Yeah. the grind's not in
So
control
maybe,
of me.
you know, we're not.
Like I'm not doing the midnight oil
Yeah.
because I have no other choice.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs and business people have a hard time. Like once they get to that place, they can't define for themselves what enough is.
Mhm.
And then they just sort of normalize that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, part of that too is we did a really cool business coaching program years ago called the E-Myth. I don't know how familiar you are with it.
Yeah, I love it.
So, you know, the whole technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, earlier on, geez, I was 10 different guys.
All of it.
Proud of it. And
Yeah.
burning the midnight oil would not change a thing for that. But, you know, as we get older and, you know, we start to figure out the gusto thing and what worked, what didn't work, you know, really it comes down to it. You know, you really need to be up looking above down in your business and watching the things being built and the pizzas being made and going out the doors and making sure the manager's making sure, you know, the timing's great and the employees are happy and the place is getting locked up at night.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that is a battle. It's easier said than done, but we're back there now and, you know, we're having fun,
Yeah.
you know, and we're, you know, high-fiving it and keeping it less is more.
Right.
So, you know, but that same application was applied to Aposto. I mean, what I told you 30 minutes ago, like I'm not there a lot, you know, I'm really not, and it works.
And that's okay.
It is. I mean, and granted, you know, there's so much technology's changed, you know, I've open table on my phone. I got my POS numbers in my phone app. So I'm looking at, you know, labor running and what cells are. And, you know, I see it working, you know,
Right.
sitting, you know, rocking my baby to sleep. It's just such a wild experience we live in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am running it because I'm paying attention to it, but I'm just like, I'm not there opening a bottle of wine. I'm not saying, you know, patting Adam on the back saying, hey, bro, you know,
Yeah.
I'm there in spirit, man.
But is that empowering? I feel like that would be empowering for your team that is there, that they have that latitude, that they are part of that tradition, that they're an extension
Absolutely.
of you. And that's very vulnerable. Like we talk a lot about vulnerability and authenticity. And oftentimes folks will ask me, what do you mean by vulnerability? So, well, the ability to trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like your ego's too big for you to be vulnerable enough to trust somebody else because you think you're the only person that knows how to open a wine bottle, right? And if it's not me, they're smiling, hey, Adam, how's it going? Like this won't be successful. Like, right, there is that, like I go through that, right? I feel like every buddy goes through that. And by vulnerability, it's this ability to trust others and empower others and then be an extension of you, which that's, in my mind, I think the transition. But again, I mean, it comes back to the thing that I love about you is you're not an ego guy. You are somebody that I consider to be, I think, very thoughtful, somebody that is kind, somebody that is sitting there saying, okay, how can I continue to like use this as an opportunity for me to get better and then empower other people. And that's why I always like the conversation. But it is about vulnerability and authenticity. And if you can offer that, then this place can continue to thrive, but it empowers other people to do it because you trust them.
Well, you know, one thing stepping aside and, you know, making sure and, you know, sleeping better at night, knowing I'm not there. You know, I do profit sharing there too with my GM and my chef. So that's a, you know, total game changer there. It's like something I never would have dreamed of, you know, when it was just me going 90 miles an hour and, you know, so that's certainly helped too, you know, embracing that, like, this is yours too. Cause I mean, it really is theirs. I mean, they're not shares, but they're just, it's profit. You know, if we make this much money, you're getting that bonus, and we do them, you know, every 2 quarters.
No, I was supposed to set my watch and I got totally lost.
I'm sometimes have that capabilities.
Are you, this is me. This is so me. I literally spend the first 5 minutes of my day. So I'm ready, kiss the kids, kiss my wife, go to my car, and then make a list of all the things that I forgot, go back inside. And there's once a week. So 20% of the time I will get out of my driveway, down the street,
Phone or wallet, like which one?
Halfway, yeah.
Computer.
Something.
My wife's like, will you just put a note on the trim on the door going out to the garage? Like the 5 things you need to function, you know, phone, keys, wallet, computer, you know, gym bag. Like I forget one of those almost every day. She's like,
every day.
Because I take the girls to daycare and
like, I feel like I'm one of the kids.
Yeah. I definitely am one of the kids. I think my wife would proudly say that you're a child. I
Yeah.
have 3 children living in this house, but
That's I know that routine. What's the best part of being a dad? You're a new dad. How old are your girls?
So Lucia's 2.5 and Lola's 7 months now.
What's the best? What's your favorite part at this point?
Just watching them grow in new sounds and, walking, just, seeing the first steps and seeing the first blab or, it's amazing. They're 2 different creatures. And as far as like development goes, like what's happening first, but I think our youngest is going to be talking and crawling and walking, years ahead of our oldest. So it's wild to see that. And it's like, is it Lucia pushing that in her? She just probably, absolutely, she sees her walking. She wants to walk, but she has no idea how to communicate, with her brain and tell her legs to move. So, but I think it's going to happen. That's just amazing to see that, And then, you look, we catalog our lives with our pictures. So I don't journal, and my mom wrote everything down. I feel guilty about that sometimes. I don't have like the baby book, but we have our phones. Like I can go back in chronological order and be like, okay, let me find that video of her dancing, Lucia dancing, what month was that when she was dancing or what month was she crawling? It's all there,
What
So
if we don't? Like, what if something happened and we just didn't? I do worry about that.
Yeah.
I worry about that. I feel like I want to go back through and like print them out. My wife is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Once a year, she will take all the events, trips, birthdays, whatever, and she makes a book.
Mm-hmm. That's super rad. I mean, you should have the backup too, but I feel like the cloud's never going to go, once it's on the cloud, but a little naive maybe, but the convenience of it's there. But yes, I think it's sad that we don't get to take a roll of film. I'm nostalgic. I'm old school, man. Like I like holding a picture in my hand,
Right.
And we do a couple pictures, but like, you take 2 rolls from the Christmas holidays to Walgreens and get them printed, and share them with everyone. And, like that's such a amazing experience. It's like no longer, it's all devices and screens.
My grandfather, right before he passed, we started going through their old albums, and it was like a black sheet of paper, and then they had to put like the corners,
individual
stickers,
corners, absolutely.
Stickers.
Did the same thing, man. So the last Lacona,
you did this also?
Well, no, I encountered that. Okay. Yeah. If I didn't have a little attention deficit, no.
No, it's all right. You said you were 90 the class of 97. I was like, is this guy 90?
Yeah. No, my wife would say I'm a little archaic. I mean, I think just like 2-3 years ago, I was still like had the paper calendar, like the binder.
That's okay.
No, it's just like, I need to write things down. I take notes. So I remember them.
Yeah.
I can't, I was the kid that I couldn't just absorb the lecture, what was, on the projector. Like I need to write it down, and it just like, then it impregnates itself in my brain. Just the way it is. So I was really worried about that, and honestly, I have missed a couple appointments in my phone, so now I'm to help mitigate that. Now I set myself reminders. Yeah. Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because if I don't just look at my phone, like I want to be in the moment.
Right.
We have a paper calendar in our hutch, in our dining room now. I just think it's important that we, doctor visits and.
Christina's paper. She has a paper calendar.
Yeah.
We go through it once a week.
I just don't want to have to look through a phone, and we have shared calendars with so many people, but like there's something about getting coffee in the morning and looking at the calendar and be like, nothing going on.
Right. Right. What, I am an album guy. I did realize there's something just
like vinyl,
like
or
romantic.
you're talking about?
Not my brother Rick is. My brother's a vinyl guy. I went over there this weekend, and
you're saying albums. Are we going back to photos or
photos?
Okay, yeah,
let's stay on photos.
Yeah,
real quick. My brother has vinyl albums.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take anal bum covers for $500. What was that? That's Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which
it's
Belushi or
no
Chevy Chase?
No, who is it? Will Ferrell.
Okay.
I'll take. Who's the guy? Who am I thinking of? Alex Trebek. No, but the
Pat Sajak.
No, he played Sean Connery. Okay. Yeah, Will Ferrell plays Sean Connery, and he goes, "I'll take anal bum covers for $500." He's like, that's album covers. Anyways. Rick has The Lion King, so he has hundreds and hundreds of vinyl albums, and he had Lion King, and my kids are listening to it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But albums, like photo albums,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to have like hundreds and hundreds of photo albums and you sit on the couch and everybody sits, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't do that on a phone.
No,
There's
man.
just something totally different. I want to print some of these out
Yeah.
and put them into albums.
I agree with you 100%, but it is cool to shoot your phone into it like an Apple TV and like watch it on the big screen.
Yeah,
like
no
that,
question.
But it's not the it's not the same. Especially like a vacation, you're like, let's flip it. Let's watch some videos.
Yeah.
I don't have to download anything. I just hit it, send it to the Apple TV, and like we're watching a video.
Right.
The ocean or whatever.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I did this, well, I don't know why I did this. Like podcast, whole thing, it was just one of these things that just seemed a way to have a conversation and chance to talk, whatever, right? But I read something on Instagram, and they said use social media. What made me think of this is as an opportunity to document your life for your grandkids.
Yeah.
And so it totally transformed this entire podcast for me, that these are just conversations that I get to have. Imagine if you had hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos of your mom and your dad having conversations with their friends.
Totally.
For your kids and your grandkids, that they had that opportunity. So that's what this became about. So the way we've really started to, this is newer, this is only the second time we've done it, but how we close out sort of the What's Up Grubb podcast now is give some advice to my kids, to my grandkids, kind of puts you on the spot a little bit. But if you had to sort of try to sum it up, what life's about, what kind of advice you'd have for my kids or my grandkids?
Yours specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being in the moment and, looking someone in the eye and still holding doors open for, your elders or even your kids your same age, I think it's amazing. We're just our heads down all the time, looking at our phone, watching a game or at the dinner table. So I think that's like a big part of it. Don't let life pass you up in that way, like really be in the moment, like have these conversations, get to know what someone's world's like, whether they're a carpenter, whether they're a lawyer, whether they're, a sports guy, I think just really be able to converse and get to know someone, in real time, in the present moment versus, reading's important, but I think we're just ever so more attracted to video, I think podcasts are kind of that happy medium. I do podcasts as well. Ironically, I had a business plan for a podcast after Scala closed, the Pasta Kid.
Do it.
I know.
You got a good podcast voice.
Thank you. You'll be my first guest.
It's been nice. I'd love that.
So I was the Pasta Kid. It was actually called the Pasta Podcast. We actually have that domain name. So I still have it. It could still happen. Like no one had pastapodcast.com. So pretty proud of that. But like stories are so important, be honest, be true, always dream, write your ideas down. You need a reminder. Like I need a reminder, not just like my calendar, how to get my kids to their appointments and all that stuff. But I think it's just,
it's sort of real at that point.
Don't rely on technology for everything, try to, that's what I'm going to instill in my kids. Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love you, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. I think your second one, I listened to the whole thing through. I can't remember which guest it was, but this is natural to you as well. So
thanks,
keep going, keep documenting, let our kids and grandkids listen to this later too.